line A, I'm asking you to find the slope of it. You had to do this on your homework, but what's the big difference between line A that I'm giving you here and the lines that I gave you last night when you had to find the slope? What difference do you notice?
Like dots.
Yeah, I put like points that like jumped out at you to use. Well, I don't have to do that. You can pick your own points. When you do, you should look for places where the grid perfectly crosses each other, like a nice point where it would be. So someone want to come up here and find any place on point A and put a dot on one of those grids as a point, please? So you can pick your own points. Any points on the line should work. Okay, so Lise pick that point. If you guys can pick the same one, that would be great. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. -8, -2 she picked. We need another point because we need 2 points, right, to get a change in y and change in x. Callie, you want to come pick any other point where it crosses nice and cleanly? On A, we're doing the slope of line A.
What do you mean where it crosses nicely?
Perfect. Where it's like right on a blue grid. Like here, line A is like crossing not at whole number of points, but here it's crossing perfectly there.
Even like right on the line.
All right, so we have 2 points. Now we can find the slope of line A using these 2 points. What did we say that slope was equal to? What is the ratio of what? Margaret? Change in y over change in x. Very good. All right, so we start with one of these points and work our way to the other, figuring out the change in y and the change in x. Connor?
What were the coordinates of this?
Oh, I'm sorry, that she picked -2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. -2, +7. Good question. Okay, somebody want to come up here and model how they're going to count the change in y and the change in x for everyone? You can draw in the triangle. Oh, lots of volunteers. All right, Mason, you seems like you're struggling a little, so let's see if you can get it. Okay. Doesn't matter whether you pick the low point or the high point.
Oh, just one.
Well, you got to count the change in y from one of them to the other.
So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Okay, is that a +9 or a -9, Mason?
Positive 9.
Good, so put +9 over there by the change in y. But you said positive, buddy.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had a mind, what do you call it? Mind or
Brain part?
yeah, mind part.
All right. And then,
1,
yes, Mrs. Noble said part.
3, 4, 5, 6.
Is that a positive or -6?
That is positive.
Good, very good.
So we need to divide 3 over 2.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mason. You got it right. What is one other step of simplification somebody might suggest? What might you suggest, Jack?
You can change it to a mixed number.
That is an improper fraction that changes to a mixed number, but when we're talking about slope, we don't do it. Because then you lose your change in y over change in x. So slope, you get to always leave improper. Okay? All right. And then the only thing is, Mason, so you've got all your positives and negatives, just put equal signs between there. So the slope of that line is 3/2. All right, let's try B. Slope, again, is what? What's the slope, Alec? Ratio of? Good. I want you and your partner together to find the slope for line B. So pick your points together and talk through it. Kind of lean over, Rhea, make sure you talk to Mason too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure what it is. How am I? Oh, that's really good. I know. see. Okay, and the next one. Okay.
Okay, so let's,
You're really close to it, right there.
You want to go down?
And
What I would do is I would all agree to pick the low point or the high point and start from there. So why don't you pick the low point, and what are you gonna do with changing y and changing x? Get that? Where's your answer? Okay, don't let that get lost, don't leave that down there, put it up in the top or don't leave your negatives down here, guys. Put them up, either put them next to it, like right in front, or in the numerator, because it tends to get lost.
it's like E correct. No, that's X. Yeah, it's X, because X is always
I think you guys mixed up your x's and y's.
4/1.
So where did you go from? All right. So just making sure you're straight on this. Ooh, I should have pressed pause. Hello. All right. I picked these 2 points on line B. It doesn't matter which 2 you pick. For me, though, it means if I start at this point, I'm going to go up 1, which is +1 in the y, and left 4, which is -4. So I could write that as +1, -4. Now, I talked to a couple of you. We don't ever give our answers with a negative in the denominator because we just don't look for it down there. So you should either write it out front of the whole fraction or up in the numerator of the fraction. But don't leave your negatives in the denominator. You won't be able to do that for Mrs. Kenny either. Next year you want to move them up. Okay? Any questions? All right, good. So that was the review. Let's move on. All right. So this is what we didn't get to yesterday with drawing a line given the slope and a point. So if we're at point A and we want to graph a line with a slope of -2, all we need is that 1 point to get us started. Here's why. We know that slope is the ratio of what, Rhea? Y's, put your y's on top, so it's change in x. Good. Now here I've got a slope of -2. Well, that's not a fraction. What am I gonna do? Put it over 1. All right. So from A, we need to change with a slope of -2 to get other points on the line. Here's what you need to think about is that you can interpret this a couple different ways. If I could also think of it like this, right? Either way is okay. If you interpret it this way, what does the -2 mean in terms of y direction? What does it mean in terms of the y direction, Callie?
2 down from the dot A.
Down 2. What does the +1 mean? What does the +1 mean in terms of the x direction? What do you think? Yes?
1 right.
Good. Right one. Or we could interpret it this way. What would the +2 mean in terms of the y direction? Margaret? Up 2. And what would the -1 in terms of the x direction mean? What would that mean? Julian?
1 to the left.
Left one. You can interpret it either way and you'll be okay. So we go over to our point A and we want to go down to right 1. Down to right 1. I should be blue. And there's another point on my line. I like to get 2 points on the line extra. It's easier to get my line straight. So just to show you, instead of going down 2 and right 1, I could have gone up 2 and left 1. See, it still falls on there. And then you get out your ruler and you connect the line. Okay, so now let's look at making a line from B with a slope of 4. Well, it's slope, so you know you can start out with the fact that slope is the ratio of what to what, Capone?
Y.
Changing y to changing x. And in this case, it's a positive 4. Well, I need it as a fraction. Naja? 4 over 1. So I got a positive 4 over positive 1. What are the two ways we could interpret this as far as the 4 and the 1 goes? Mason?
Up 4 and to the right one.
Right 1. Or there's another way we could interpret this one that seems a little strange. Ethan?
Down 4 and right, no, left, no, wait, left one.
Good. Good job. So the negative and the negative would make for a positive 4 slope. Anyone confused about that? All right, so then let's go over to your point B, and you want to use that slope to get other points on the line. I'm going to go up 4, right 1. And then I'm going to draw in my line. We got some more stuff we have to put together now. So, let's look back at your linear function exploration from last week. You know where you graphed all of those lines and you had a bunch of parallel lines? Quick, grab that. All right, so we just got done looking at the graph from last week, problem number 1, and the kids looked and saw that for these equations, this is where they cross the y-axis. What's the connection that you see here? What connection do you see, Rhea?
Like a y-axis number, it matched up with the numbers in the equation.
Yeah, it matches up with the constant in the equation. That right here is where it crosses the y-axis. Positive 8, positive 2, negative 3, negative 6. This has a special name. This point is called the y-intercept.
I didn't even notice that.
I know, it was my job to bring it to your attention. All right, and so it's a really slick and easy way if the equation's in this format, watch how easy it is to graph these lines. All right, let's check this out. So, when the equation is in this format, this is the slope. That's the up and down, left and right number. And this is the y-intercept, where it crosses the y-axis. So without doing a lot of math, we can use this to graph our equations. Let's start with example 1. This number right here is the slope, which is the change in y over change in x, and it equals 2. I need a fraction, Lena, so I can write that as good. And this number right here, what is the 5? What's that show us on the graph? Callie?
That's where it is on the y-axis,
What?
the y-intercept.
That's the y-intercept. So here's what we do. We start with the y-intercept and plot it as a point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we have a point, and we know the slope, so we can find other points on the line, right? What can I do from here to get another point on the line? What can I do to get another point on the line? Rhea?
Up to left 1.
Up to left 1. And I always do an extra one just to get a nice solid line. I can draw that in, and that's my line. Go ahead and do that. All right, example 2. Y equals x minus 1. The number in front of x is supposed to be the slope. What number is there? 1. Remember the invisible coefficient? When you can't see it, it's a 1. So the slope here is 1. But I need a fraction, so how can I write 1 as a fraction, Capone? 1 over 1. So my slope is 1 over 1. And my y-intercept is what, guess? Negative 1. What do I graph first? What should I graph, put on my grid first? Lise? the -1. So you go over to your grid, you go down 1, you plot your point. That's your y-intercept. How do I get another point on the line? What do I do to get another point on the line? Lena?
Go up one and right one.
Up 1, right 1. Up 1, right 1. And I draw that line in.
How do you write them?
Well, you draw that line and I'm going to hand out your homework. I don't mind doing that. Got a nice lilac colored homework worksheet for you today. That's so you can return those grids to everyone. Okay, so we're a little tight for time. I'm going to have you skip just E, E, and F. So do A, B, and C. You need graph paper. I was going to put it on the back, but then I forgot. So you see on the back table, there's graph paper grids. You got to pick one of those up. Okay. We have regular homeroom, so if you have questions about it, come see me. That's it. Bye, guys. Make it cool and fun. Okay, D, E, and F. D, E, and F. Adios. Don't forget the graph grid. Oh.
Hurry up!